We're live.
Okay, great. So let's stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. And our land acknowledgement is a way of respecting, honoring, and creating awareness about our past. We begin our village board meetings by acknowledging that New Paltz is on ancestral land of the Munsee, Esopus, and Lenape people. Okay, looking at this agenda, any items that we need to add? So in the business agenda, we're adding item 5, park use requests. And that looks like the only thing that's new, correct?
Yes.
I make a motion that we move the agenda as amended.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
While we're at it, I'm going to motion that we move the consent agenda.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Great. Did we receive, or do we have any announcements that we would like to make? Okay, did we receive any public comments that we should be relaying?
We've received none prior to the meeting and none on the live chat so far.
Great, thank you. Okay, let's jump ahead. Does anyone want to walk us through item number 1 to highlight any climate equity or justice related issues or updates?
Two climate related things were on the consent agenda, where we have the stormwater bioretention and the LED street lighting. Both of them are the short environmental assessment forms that are going to DASNY for part of our grant for each of these things. So those are both environmentally friendly items.
Excellent.
And then on the, tenant landlord relations end of things and tenants' rights and housing, affordability, we are going to, just give a thumbs up to the Landlord Tenant Relations Council's social media campaign to increase, transparency and accessibility of information, which is a nice opportunity to remind everyone that Governor Cuomo did extend the eviction moratorium through until next year. So you literally cannot be evicted for anything at all until 2021. And it will probably be extended again. So communicate with each other. And if you need a hand figuring out how to do so, the Landlord Tenant Relations Council and I are here to help.
Alex, I have a question on that topic. What's your understanding of what, it seems like there was some issues where folks living in apartments, instead of being evicted, landlords were getting buildings condemned by local building departments. It seemed like that hit Spectrum News, but I had also heard about it from some other folks, not in New Paltz, fortunately, but in some other communities. I'm just curious, have you heard other instances of that problem and how it's being dealt with?
Yeah, that's just kind of part of, that's like the next level of de facto evictions that, we could have guessed probably we would see. And just one more reason I'm so grateful to be here in New Paltz, where that isn't happening, because our building department is awesome and here for safety reasons. So I've been hearing reports of this happening, not just across New York State, but across the country for sure. And so I actually spoke with Will Frank about that issue up in Kingston, because I was like, how can we help? And when something happens any place in Ulster County, it really does affect us, right? So obviously, quick reminder, lots of resources. If that's happening, you need to talk to legal services. There's free counsel out there, because it gets messy right away. The thing is, there has to be an emergency for that that declaration to carry right now, in the middle of this eviction moratorium. So it has to be like a real emergency. Like danger has to be like presented to the community, to the whole building, the whole street, the whole block, whatever the case may be. So that's alarming in itself, because usually the next step landlords will take is, you know, turning the heat off, and making it so you can't access heat, hot water, and stove or something like that come winter. And then it does become an emergency, and that's when a building department would be in the right to condemn that building, you know, from anyone being able to rent it. So that's alarming. It is a thing that's happening, but it's of a lot of our opinions that no judge would actually follow through with that eviction proceeding. So I think it's a good time to remind everyone that an eviction, no matter what is happening, you know, in your situation, an eviction is a legal proceeding that has to happen through the courts. So even if you have the building department and your landlord showing up and saying, this is what's going on, they still have to go through the courts. A judge still has to rule in favor of the building department, saying this is an occupancy issue. That being said, safety first. So if you're experiencing something like that, you know, reach out to the resources that exist and get yourself to someplace way less toxic.
Got it. I guess along the lines of, you know, challenging social justice issues, there has also been some noise about, and I know you were following this as well, about individuals riding bicycles being pulled over by police, and the probable cause cited had to do with whether or not they had a bell or a light or reflectors, which are all part of vehicles and traffic laws in New York State. So that, you know, allows the police to act the way they were acting. But it just seems like it's a curious response, considering that you know, numerous individuals don't have those things on their bikes, and you know, it seems like an example of selective enforcement. I'm just curious if, because I'm going to speak with some of the county cycling advocates tomorrow morning. I'm just curious. I know that you've been researching this topic as well. You know, is there anything you can share with us on this concern?
Yeah, so this is another issue that is not just like a New York issue alone. It's actually really been most written about, so observed by people who write in public forums. That doesn't mean it happened the most, but in the DC metro area for quite some time. And so it's always been seen as kind of like just another tactic to enforce, you know, what sounds like a good idea in terms of safety, you know, like on one end, but when it's selectively enforced, it's always just a matter of perpetuating institutionalized racism. And there was a really interesting incident that I think if anyone were to read articles about it, from April 20th, 2019, down in New York City, about you know, a group of like marijuana like activists went on a bike ride, and like, come on, it's a bike ride in the daytime, in the daylight, and they all got ticketed in mass for not having bells on their bikes. So if that instance doesn't really demonstrate kind of where this issue kind of can go so awry, and how it was like used basically to silence people, you know, practicing free speech. And it was a group of mostly like Black men. You know, I think that's a really good example of why we need to look at this. Is it really an important safety thing? If it were, why isn't it being enforced, you know, with white people? I've ridden many bikes around without a bell.
Okay, so I'll report out on the conversation that I'm going to have on that topic tomorrow. I'm sure you'll probably be doing some additional research as well, so maybe we can discuss that at an upcoming meeting. And just a final announcement piece: on Monday at 10 a.m., I plan to speak with the supervisor for the probation department in the county who handles the sex offender unit. And the reason that I wanted to have this conversation, and I'm going to reach out to the community and ask for some questions in advance, just so as a community we can better understand sex offender laws. And this was prompted because there were a couple of sex offenders placed in the Econo Lodge on Route 299. I understand that our town board is looking at changing some laws, or at least having some tighter procedures in terms of how those placements are handled. So we'll learn more about what the town is looking to institute. But I think in addition to that effort, I wanted to at least provide a space where we could ask some of the experts in the field what goes on, what community should expect, what's the process look like. So we'll probably do the same thing. It'll be a Zoom call, and then we'll upload it to YouTube, so it'll live as a permanent conversation. But if anyone wants to watch it live or send questions in advance, we're going to be encouraging getting those questions. We can even feed them to the person that we'll be speaking to in advance, because we want to pack in as much information as possible.
Tim, one last announcement. I know this is Alex's area, but the deadline for census is tomorrow, October 15th, Thursday.
I thought it was extended again.
Today, was it? Because I'm not seeing anything. I thought it was tomorrow. This was ruling yesterday.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I didn't see yet today. I was going off things from yesterday, so ignore me.
I did hear about this morning that tomorrow is the deadline.
Tomorrow's deadline. Okay. Tomorrow
is the deadline. Okay, thanks everybody. All right, so let's jump ahead to item 2 on our business agenda. We're going to chat with Mr. McAllister, his interest in serving on our public access TV committee. Thanks for joining us this evening. You want to tell us a little bit about, you're on mic or mute right now, so you probably want to turn that live. But tell us a little bit about your interest in serving on the public access committee.
Yes, of course. I became aware of the public access station sometime last year, and just a passing interest. And then I saw a notice that Anton Stewart was looking for someone to help with developing a web platform for the channel. So I volunteered to do that. And in the course of building their platform, I learned that, I had to start attending the committee meetings in order to understand what exactly the platform required. And so my interest in, since I was attending the committee meetings, I understood more and more about their intentions, their purpose, and being a big fan of the First Amendment and desire to get a platform available to inform the community about local events, and a platform for anyone to post things they find of interest and it might be of interest to the community. I thought it was a great thing to help. So that's basically it. Does anyone have any questions about other questions?
I just have to say thank you so much, because Liam's been showing up in a time where it's really weird to start showing up to meetings too, I gotta say, when it's all virtual and whatnot. So thank you so much for everything you've done so far, and for everything you will do.
Oh, thank you.
Anyone else have some additional questions? You want to just tell us like one or two things that you're probably most excited about in terms of how you could contribute on this committee?
Well, my focus really is in providing a platform to raise awareness of the channel for the broader community. So I see my role not just as a technical one, but as a promotion role to expand that awareness and get the word out to the broadest possible audience, and encourage people to provide content, whatever people are interested in doing and sharing with the community. This is the place to do it. Not everyone's on Facebook, not everyone's on Twitter. Not enough people know about public access TV in my mind. So what I'm excited about is spreading the word about it and encouraging people to participate.
Got it, thanks. Any other questions? Well, I'd like to make a motion that we appoint Liam McAllister to a seat on the Public Access Committee. Do we have a particular term that needs to be filled, Ariana?
We don't. We actually don't have proper terms the way that everything else is dictated. So I was thinking just 2 years could be a good amount of time, and then you guys can see how you all like it. Ending in May of 2022, so it coincides with reorg.
That sounds good to me.
So as a friendly amendment to my motion.
I second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Welcome aboard, and thanks for volunteering.
Thanks, Liam.
It's good to hear some of the issues in front of the community prior to my speaking. Thank you. I'll let you go on without me.
Thanks. Thomas Peterson, so you're here to chat with us this evening about your interest in serving on the planning board. You want to tell us a little bit about how you learned about this opportunity?
Yeah, so I'm relatively new to the town. I moved here in July. And since being here, I've just been kind of looking for a way to get involved. And somebody had seen the post on the Facebook group, I think, that they were looking to fill an alternate seat on the board. And so they forwarded it to me to just let me know. And I at that time did not know very much about really what the planning board does, but since then I've watched some of the meetings online, and it's all the stuff is interesting to me. It kind of aligns with some of my interests in how the process of permitting in a town and the process of building expansion, and how a business may expand or change its function, sort of. So it seemed like it would be interesting, and if the need was there, it seemed like something that I could be a good opportunity to serve and to be involved. So.
Got it. Can you tell us, have you done other comparable volunteer type work that you would compare this to?
No, I've never really served on any kind of a municipality or a civic board. I've been, as a profession, I work in the film and TV industry. So I have done projects that involve, questions that are sometimes addressed by planning, like questions of, city expansion and, water management and things like that. So, I have sort of a long standing interest in how cities work. But volunteer work, I'm one of my hobbies is carpentry, and I'm interested in home building. So I've worked with Habitat for Humanity, so there's I have some interest in construction issues and things like that.
Got it. Any other questions from our board?
Yeah, sure. Hi, Thomas. This is Bill Murray. I'm
Hi.
Rusty. Hi. Have you had a chance to talk to the chair, John Linton, at all?
No, not so far.
Okay, it might be a great thing to talk with him a little bit. Talk about your interest and his interest and where the board's going. He's served on the planning board for many years. Took a bit of a respite for a couple of years, and now is the chair. So he's experienced and can really fill you in on what the duties are of the planning board.
Great.
Hi, this is Michelle Zip. I'm a village trustee as well. Thank you for volunteering. And I'll say just what Bill mentioned is John Litton is wonderful. And one of the things I appreciate about John so much is that he can work on a board with others with a really calm and cool demeanor, even if, you know, there might be tensions going on.
Mhm.
So I think that's just an important quality to have when working with a group of people. So I just wanted to note that. And you seem like you have a calm demeanor and am able to let cool heads prevail in the event any conversation may get contentious.
Thank you. Yeah, that sounds like a good quality, definitely a good quality to have. And I think it's, you know, I like to think that I'm a pretty laid back guy in general. So thanks.
Are you from the area at all, or Hudson Valley area?
Well, so I grew up in New Orleans, and I lived in various boroughs of New York City since 2003. So I've been visiting New Paltz about since the time that I moved to New York City to hike and climb and bike. But I'm a full-time resident as of July.
Well, welcome.
Thank you. It's really wonderful to be here.
I mean, we often compare appointments to our planning board to Supreme Court justice appointments. So Alex is going to ask you some real zingers right now.
Yeah, I've been waiting.
I totally did not prepare the zingers. I just, you know, I really do think that in this time of, you know, climate change and global pandemic and, you know, like housing injustice and basically everything is really, really terrible. I can't think of a worse time to be alive. I think that planning boards can be like the place where so many of these problems can either be solved or prevented or worsened, you know? So how do you feel about that potential responsibility?
Well, I mean, I think that you know, that's why, from what I learned so far about the board, you know, it seems of particular interest to me. You know, I mean, really growing up in New Orleans, I had a lot of experiences with how, like, the city planning commission could at times unfairly decide, say, what neighborhood was worth preserving and what neighborhood wasn't. And a lot of those issues down there had to do with historic preservation, which, you know, I know is something you have here, but there, you know, there's certainly, there were certainly a lot of times and continue to be times that there was bias that was unaddressed. And there were, you know, questions of, say, you know, a sort of misunderstanding of how a community worked that led to decisions that were kind of unfortunate, particularly with historic preservation, where, you know, highways were routed, and, you know, questions of also, you know, environmentally, questions of where pressure to develop outward versus, in particular flood control, and where it was not environmentally safe to do, but there was pressure from various stakeholders to, develop housing and businesses in places where, it oftentimes ended up being disastrous. So, I see that those issues are really central to the way a community works, and the geography of a community I think is really important. Like another issue that I was familiar with was in upgrading historic structures in ways that were, to accommodate environmental technology. So, like for instance, because water management is always such an issue, there were things like, paving driveways and sidewalks with permeable porous material so that the water wouldn't accumulate and cause like a sort of a surge. But then there was sometimes resistance with, regulations about maintaining the historical character of a structure. So I think that, there needs to be a lot of thought put into both preserving historical character, but making room for, necessary environmental upgrades, and, similarly to, to issues of, race and class when it comes down to, where city services are, where, transportation goes, things like that. So it's definitely, a position with a lot of responsibility.
Awesome. Sounds like you really thought about that aspect of it for sure.
Yeah, and I think it's enormous that you, are just referencing stormwater at all. That's probably, nearly every single planning board project should be looked at through a stormwater lens. So
I love stormwater. That's my
there you go. Then
that's my pet interest.
That's all we needed to hear.
Yeah.
Okay. And Ariana pointed out that there was an email thread where you had corresponded with John Litton. I don't have that in front of me.
Yeah, to my knowledge, I just I provided a resume and cover letter.
Okay, maybe Ari's just pointing that out, that the
but I didn't
the
actually.
Ability to contact each other already exists. So if you wanted to follow up with John,
Yeah, I'll follow up with him, and yeah.
Okay. Well, sounds good.
Great.
I'd like to go ahead and motion to appoint Thomas to the planning board as an alternate.
Second.
And do you have a spot that he would fill, Ariana? Is there a particular term?
Yeah, generally the alternate seats are 2-year terms, so that would also be June of 2022.
Okay, that's the amendment to my motion, and Bill already seconded it. So all in favor?
Aye.
So thanks very much for volunteering. This is I was being a little silly about Supreme Court justice stuff, but this is enormously important work, and a strong, effective planning board is incredibly valuable for a local community like ours.
I agree.
So thanks.
Yeah, well, thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right, let's move on to this pandemic operations plan. We have an email from Will Frank. Ari, do you mind walking us through the email and the issues?
So I can. Part of why it's not linked in the agenda is because Will wanted it to be confidential. So I don't know if you guys want to talk about this in executive session or just to go through it now.
Can we hold off till the end, Tim, and do an exec?
I had to stand up and get some water. So this would merit an exec session is what you're suggesting?
I mean, yes, it's totally obviously your call, but
Are we expected to take action? Is that what we're looking to do?
ideally, yes.
And the action would just be that we have this pandemic operations plan, and after we are all on the same page with Will's comments, the idea would be that we would adopt it as policy. That's the game
Well, so
plan.
his memo is not a plan. His memo is informational.
Yeah, I know that he was commenting on the plan, right? That you had worked on previously.
I wouldn't really say that, actually. I think that he was just outlining all the different things that can be done. Where we need to provide paid sick leave, where we need to have some kind of standard. But basically, I think you guys really, what you guys need to do is decide how you want to handle these things. If we have across the board, like we were saying, for like you guys did with the travel policy. So no matter whether or not an employee is essential, non-essential, can work from home, cannot work from home, if they have traveled to one of these states voluntarily, they have to quarantine for 14 days or until they have a negative test.
But that was an example where we superseded what the state was doing. Like,
yes.
Does every municipality have to come up with our own plan in this case?
Yes. So the governor created I don't know if it was the executive order, but he made it mandatory that by April of next year, we all have to have pandemic operations plans in place. We mostly have one at this point. Our workplace safety plan, which here, I'll just link that in the thread for you guys. Is basically that I think covers it. The thing is, it doesn't cover what it doesn't cover is, say I think I may have been exposed. So obviously me, Ariana, I can work from home because most of my work is on the computer. But what if an employee who cannot work on their computer thinks that they may have been exposed? We have nothing to handle that right now, where it's not a positive test, it's not COVID symptoms, it's a potential exposure. And does that person, basically right now, our employees are incentivized to not use their sick time if they think that they've had a possible exposure, because they have to either use their sick time or not be paid. Where we don't have something in place that says, if you've been exposed to COVID or you think you maybe have exposed, you can take a day or two off while you sort that out, or wait to hear back from contact tracers. Like, it's really nuanced is kind of the thing. And so what we need to decide is whether or not, what do we want to do? And part of the issue that was raised, and this is part of why I brought this up to Will, is that some of our employees who I think are union employees do not fall under the federal law, the Federal Families First Coronavirus Response Act. They, depending on how you guys define it, they would be exempt from that. So part of what you might want to do, and I think you should do, is make it so that all of our employees would fall under that act.
Ari, do you have off the top of your head, like where, because this is like one thing I couldn't piece together in my head, but I'm also like a little hectic right now. Like where Governor Cuomo expects this plan to fall within like all the different, policies and stuff that exist. Because we've got like our emergency preparedness plan, and then we have all these like piecemeal things and stuff. And like, I just wonder, like, I know this has to be done by April, and I also know it would make people feel better just to have something out there. I just wonder, like, where it would exist, if that makes sense. Because that would, I think, make it easier for us all to like figure out like what it is we're supposed to do. Because there's no template really, that exists yet
Right.
in the state, because it hasn't really been done.
It has not, and there's very little guidance on that. And that was part of what I was asking Will for, was, are there other local municipalities who have anything?
Nope.
So it looks like we would be, once again, the pilot community, just paving the way here in New Paltz. But yeah, I mean, things are just, everything's ever evolving. It's always, moving and changing. And so I think that that's part of why nobody wanted to put things into law. And certainly, this wouldn't be law, but that's why there's nobody moving in this direction, and are just kind of waiting for more guidance from the state. So, a pandemic operations plan does not need to go into place in full right now, tonight, certainly. I mean, we have till April to come up with what that might look like in a broader sense. But I think trying to, nail down how our employees should behave if they have a possible exposure is, something that we should do.
Definitely. It's hard to come up with like something that we don't yet have like an example for,
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, this seems like an incredibly expensive proposition. We're coming up with something we have no experience coming up with, and then we're going to be vetting it through our attorney, and then every municipality in the state's going to be doing exactly the same thing. Like, it just seems like an insane use of taxpayer dollars.
I mean,
agreed.
I do think that our workplace safety plan does cover us with a lot of these things. It goes through protective equipment and hygiene and, communication and screening, and like it definitely hits on all the different notes. So I think, we mostly actually already have a plan in place, but this plan, the main thing it doesn't cover in like more detail is what if someone actually, it is like the nuance of not whether or not they're actually sick, but whether or not they potentially are sick. And the other main thing is and Will addresses it in his he has a whole like paragraph on it. It's towards the end, and it has to do, it's the additional considerations.
Has this been discussed in NICOM, Tim? Do you know?
We reached out to NICOM. They were the ones who they directed us to general municipal law that allows for like something with Red Cross and volunteering, and basically that equating that to like paid sick leave. Yeah, NICOM has not given much, does not have more direction for us than that.
And when was the last time you checked in with them on that?
Not that long ago, right? I guess right when this memo was coming out. So within the last month. This was from the 23rd of September.
Right, last couple of weeks.
Yeah.
Oh. It just seems ridiculous that, all these municipalities are going to be doing this. I mean, we're not alone.
Yeah.
So I think if we're going to talk about this further and get into any more details, it kind of does touch upon personnel things in a way that I think does warrant going into executive session. And I'd be happy to do that with you guys if you want to continue the conversation at the end of the meeting. because I have other things that I would say, but I'm not going to say them because I'm protected.
Can we discuss this tomorrow then? Because we're not going to take any action tonight, so it doesn't really matter whether we have this.
I don't know that that's true, because what I want to say to you guys is not about the pandemic operations plan, but more specific. It's the additional considerations portion of the memo.
Okay, so then let's just do that at the end of this meeting. We could do like a separate video after we adjourn. Or I don't know how.
Sounds good.
Physically, how do we do this? We have to like, can you do that where it's just us in the Zoom and it's not uploading to, or you can end the upload to YouTube?
Yeah.
Let's just do that at the very end.
Yeah, we can do that.
Yep, sounds good.
Okay, so the next item is we got these 2 requests to use the park. Both of them seem like they would be events that have over 50 people. So unfortunately, we're trying to manage a municipality in a global pandemic, so we would not be able to approve either of these events.
Do you want to make a motion to?
One of the organizers contacted me via text today, and I relayed that same sentiment. But sure, we can make a motion that we can't approve these events because of the 50-person gathering rule.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Next item, memo regarding IT recommendation. You want to walk us through that, Ariana?
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm sorry that KT is not here this evening to talk about this, because she and I have had a lot of these conversations already. But this has kind of been a long time in the making, and the pandemic has highlighted why these things are important just that much more. So the first topic is about making all forms submittable online, and with the caveat that we would also have the ability to accept online payments, which we do have the ability to accept online payments for like our water bills or parking tickets, but any of our forms that exist, whether that's a long-term parking, which is the example that I gave here, or any of our building department forms that have very straightforward fees. None of that stuff can currently be accepted online. And so I met with Corey and Alana, and we reviewed all of the different building department forms. And Corey is very into this idea. He thinks that it will really streamline all of the building department processes. He said that if I needed a memo from him, he would be happy to give it. So I told him that I thought we would be okay without it, that you guys would take my recommendation here, but part of it would be a paid service. I looked into Google Forms, which is free, but we can't accept payments through it. And I think that it would just add like extra steps to something that could really be streamlined. And Corey even actually said that he already has a place where we could find the money from, because right now Unicity has 2 users and we're paying for each user, but he's the only user, so he's canceling the second user, and that was more than $40 a month. So I think that this would really be wise for us to just go for paying for this. And then we can get started with all these integrations. I did call our already existing company that we accept payments through on our website right now, and to see if they integrate with JotForms. And I'm still waiting to actually hear back from them, even though I called them last week. They were talking to their IT department and said that they would email me. So I don't have an exact answer on that yet, but hopefully we can figure out the integration with our already existing like bank. It's like a free service through M&T, but if we can't, we would figure that next step out. So we can hold off on that until we know we can integrate, if you guys prefer. But it does integrate well with Google. We can have people fill out the job forms and it'll auto populate Google spreadsheets. So if we're like, hey, what were all the events that didn't happen in 2020. We can look at a spreadsheet and see very quickly and easily everything that's in there.
One thing I like about this, by the way, is so big topic among the Landlord Tenant Relations Council is like, why do we still have like landlord emails that like will bounce back? And it's like, because they wrote down their email wrong, you know?
Yeah.
And that's literally it. Like, and so I've been like calling through, like, you know what I mean? I've been like calling people and being like, what is your weird AOL email? Like that, like, is this what it is? Cause like you wrote it down wrong.
Yeah.
And this would
Perfect
totally
example.
solve that and make it so much easier to reach out next time there's a pandemic.
Right. And I mean, and it's things like you can't submit an incomplete form. You know, I mean, you can fill it out incorrectly, I suppose, still, but it's not going to have blank spaces because the questions are required. And, you know, regularly people do that with the building department where they just have to call people up and chase down answers. So it would really, I think it would really help the building department. I mean, and the clerk's office. I mean, Alberta looked at the long-term parking application and thought it looked great. So I think that, you know, we could definitely do these things, and it'll really streamline the process. But so that's the first recommendation. Does anybody have questions regarding the forms? Okay, cool. And then the second one is one that still requires more work, but I wanted the whole board to be on board with this before we start looking into it more deeply. And Nancy is very aware of this. She pre-approved this memo basically. But is that we would digitize more things in the treasurer's office. So the plan is that I will go down and spend basically a whole day working with the treasurer's office and seeing all the different, you know, moving pieces so that I can help with this process. But basically we would like to have purchase order software. So, you know, the very the kind of like minutia of it is like that we get these piles of purchase orders that need to be initialed by the finance committee, which falls on Tim and KT. And since we don't have in-person meetings, it's like getting to Village Hall isn't always something that is on the top of everybody's list. And, you know, filling out these, you know, looking through all these purchase orders. So it would be a lot easier if we could do this in a digital way. It would also make everything searchable. You know, you could just be like, oh, what was that purchase order? And just go search for it instead of like leafing through papers. But, you know, that's something that we will work together, me and Nancy in the treasurer's office, just to figure out what the costs and benefits of that will be. And then we'll have a final recommendation. But does anybody have any questions or thoughts on that right now?
No, I think that's an exciting, you know, project to work on. You know, I think because many of those bills are basically the same bill, just paid regularly. So, you know, there should be less paperwork when it's just like updating the date or the dollar amount. So you're going to work with the treasurer's department and Nancy to understand, you know, how it's currently being handled, and that should give you a better sense of what type of software might work. So there's nothing for us to do in terms of taking action on that topic. Do we need to take action on the form recommendation?
Yeah, if you guys feel comfortable doing that, I think that would be, I mean, I think that I've used Jot Forms at Phillies Bridge Farm for years now. And I think that it's really a very versatile way to do things. So I think it's the best one that we would find, even if I looked into more form services.
Yeah, I think the fact that you're already comfortable with it makes a great deal of sense. So I would like to motion that we go ahead and move forward with, you know, using that application.
Yeah.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
And then you'll report back to us, you know, what you learn and if that shapes what you might end up recommending in terms of purchase order software. So that will be a discussion for the future.
Yes, absolutely.
Okay, great.
Ari,
Yeah, go ahead, Bill.
thanks for doing this.
Oh, you're welcome. There is a third topic in here, and it has to do with working from home infrastructure. And I mean, I think this kind of goes hand in hand with the conversation we were just having before. And, people who can work from home, if they've got the sniffles and they don't really know what's going on yet, even if they don't think they've been exposed, if they can work from home, there's no reason why they should come into the office. So one of the things that I'm recommending is allowing more remote access onto work computers. I know Corey's been doing it. I have a laptop that is a village laptop, so I don't have to actually access my work computer. But there are programs that you wouldn't necessarily want to be on someone's home computer, or we'd have to pay for to do that. But people could just literally access their desktops at their workstations through a home computer. And we could do two-factor authentication. That's something that through Google I can mandate. So somebody can't just, if somebody else signs into someone's computer, it would notify them on like their cell phone or something. So that would like prevent it from being accessed by somebody who's not our employee, who might live in the same household. And then by doing virtual private networks. So this is something that I don't think we need to vote on the virtual private network tonight. I want to look into that a little bit more, but these are just things that help to protect our information. And I know these are things that Nancy's been very concerned with, and rightfully so. We should all be concerned with security as people who have access to potentially classified information, especially the financial side of the village. So I think if we're going to have somebody like Roseanne or Carol accessing their work computers, they access Encode and the financial software, and we can have these security measures in place. And then the other thing is about Google phone numbers that would forward calls from Village Hall to personal phones or landlines. And then if, say for some reason, hopefully we don't encounter this, nobody can be in Village Hall, we can still be answering the phones. And so that's something I want to do a little bit more research on. Again, I put out some emails to Google, but I didn't get the information back that I wanted yet, to know how much that might cost us and whether or not we could do it. But if you guys are like, can you give me like the thumbs up that I should continue to do this research before I spend like a lot more time doing it, I guess is what it is.
I motion we give Ariana a thumbs up.
Yes, I agree. If you remind me tomorrow, I can connect you with some folks from work, because Max in Senator Metzger's office was brilliant and set up a phone forwarding system like really quickly from 3 different office phone numbers, and rotated a schedule for the whole office through Google Voice. And it worked really, really well, so that we were all able to work from home and use our like IBM VPN that's through the state Senate. It's not the best, but it works, and I didn't have to go into an unsafe space that whole time. So if you remind me, I can connect you with Max if you need.
That would be amazing. Yes, please. Thank you, Alex.
Totally.
Ari, I did use Google Voice when I was doing the neighbor program. It's a really terrific feature that they have. Another thumbs up for Google Voice.
Well, great. Thank you all so much for being into all of this. I think it will really bring Village Hall into the 21st century.
Yay.
It's important. It's very important.
Okay, so we're good to move on to our next topic.
Yep. Thank you.
Okay, so we have the final RFP and proposal form for the Ann Oliver House at 5 Broadhead, and I spoke with folks at Pattern for Progress, as well as our attorney and the chair of our Historic Preservation Commission, Tom Olson. So I think we're really good to go to release it publicly. The thing we're waiting on are some dates in terms of when we would want the responses to be submitted to us, and then when we anticipate announcing an award. Like I imagine it would be maybe a 1 month. Well, I don't know. We have to probably get a little bit more clarity in terms of like timing of the, when an awardee could take control of the site. So I think that will be relatively soon, and then we can populate this RFP with some dates. But I'm very comfortable with the idea of sharing this far and wide, because we would love to have lots of parties, hopefully local builders or even just individuals who are interested in a cool project. It doesn't, I'm imagining lots of entities that could potentially respond to this RFP, in addition to the likes of Habitat for Humanity, who know this world very clearly. I think I'm hoping we get a great deal of interest from this RFP. So I'd like to make a motion that the board is okay with sharing this publicly.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Sounds good. Moving on to the next item.
Tim, I did reach out to stewards today, asking them how they felt about looking at the property. Interested persons. I haven't heard back from him.
Okay. Yeah, I was on a long call with them this morning about that intersection, as it's going to include the Empire State Trail, the shared use plan, and we don't want it to be too vehicle centric. So lots going on that site, and they're building that thing fast and furiously. They're very anxious to open that store as soon as possible. So that might be why you didn't hear from Chuck, because he's got his hands full to get that thing done and manage this entire DOT project, where our community is also comfortable with the nature of that intersection, and where it doesn't end up to be overly vehicle centric, especially since the state has invested all this money in the Empire State Trail, and this intersection will include the Empire State Trail. So I think there's an enormous opportunity, and we want to get it done correctly. So that might be why you didn't hear from Chuck. We'll keep nudging.
Do you know offhand what their plans are for the current existing stewards?
Yeah, I reached out to Chuck a little while ago, a couple weeks ago, and he said he had no official word yet. They might sell it, they might lease it, and he told me I could relay that publicly. So nothing official yet.
Okay.
Okay, so the short-term rental law, I was not able to massage the enforcement language in that law. That's still on my to-do list. I feel like the rest of the draft law is really solid. And I noticed the city of Springfield, Massachusetts, I heard a conversation on public radio, and their city council person was describing exactly the same law that we're trying to enact. So it just seems like, it makes a great deal of sense. Like, if you're going to do a short-term rental, it should be in your commercially zoned district and not in your residentially zoned district. But if it's, obviously a owner occupied property, it's perfectly fine to do Airbnb. But, it's very different if investors are purchasing properties and essentially turning them into short-term mini hotels. So I think that's really what we're trying to do. We want people to monetize their houses, as long as it's actually their house. If they're going to be a B&B host, that's fine. So that's on me to work on that enforcement language and to get that buttoned up. So that will wait until next time. Any comments, or can we jump to sprinkler law?
I just concur that the one loose thread is the one that you're going to work on. So thank you.
Yep. Okay, sprinkler law. Bill, do you want to tell us the latest with where that's at?
Yeah, well, we passed the law earlier this year. Then it goes to New York State codes for review. Went to review June, July. They came back to us in August, said there's some nuances and technicalities that need to be addressed. They're not easily explained. This involved Will Frank's associate Stephanie, Corey Worthman, and this happened. The return of the comments came in the end of August, and we're into now October. And our code enforcement official, Corey Worthman, is a bit overwhelmed. And he was just posed the question is, is this a priority at this particular time? So I just wanted to alert everyone to that this law is it's sort of suspended for the time being until our building inspector can take a closer look at it. I did ask him today if he could estimate how many hours it would take, and I haven't heard back from him. But
I make a motion that we clone Corey.
second,
Yeah, I
Okay.
third that one.
yeah.
Okay,
Just-
so we'll circle back on that when we have a chance. Okay, Alex, tell us about the social media plan for the long-term or the Landlord-Tenant Relations Council.
Yeah, so big thanks to Nadia, who had come up with this plan and present it to the full Landlord-Tenant Relations Council, and the whole group has been working on this. Just basically, they want just a formal thumbs up to go ahead and start a Facebook page, an Instagram, and a YouTube, because it would just be easier to have its own YouTube for the purposes of making these tutorial videos that we started to plot out. And so I also just wanted to make sure you all got a chance to just see the current brainstorm list of the tutorials that we want to make sure we cover. These are the scenarios that we all have been dealing with pretty much every single week, by email, questions that come to the landlord tenant email or just to me in myriad ways. And then I bounce over to Landlord Tenant Relations Council. So these platforms would just be the way to kind of, get that information out there. And it's cool because this is stuff that the Student Association wants to work with us on. And it'd be great to kind of have a living space where, if all goes well, some of the videos will look outdated one day in a few years. But basically going through how do you find out if your rental is registered, all the same old messaging, but just one more way to do it, where it's here, let's go through the website together. Kind of like what I do all the time on phone banks, where I'm walking people through stuff virtually. But how to pay your rent, get a rental receipt, what are your other paper trail options, understanding fees, etc. How to look around a new apartment you might move into, to inspect it yourself and make sure it's a good place for you, and that everything is covered, and basically how to read a lease, all this basic stuff. So that's going to be the main goal of these three platforms, just cross posting, and then hopefully we can repost some good content onto village platforms, as well as all of our own platforms, and really just find take advantage of all the different ways to get this information out there, because we have it all together. We finally really have a strong Landlord-Tenant Relations Council that's been working so hard, especially during this pandemic. So let's really get this information out there and empower our tenants, and also empower our landlords, so everyone can work well together. Did anyone have any questions about it?
Take myself off mute. No, I think it makes a great deal of sense to have individual dedicated landlord tenant relation council social media initiatives. Yeah, thumbs up that that the volunteers take a crack at that.
Awesome. We will be getting it started next week.
Okay. Next item is the smart box that we have to go ahead and purchase for our water treatment plant. This includes a one-time fee of $8,300 and an annual fee of $20,750. You know, this is big ticket stuff that we didn't anticipate earlier, but it's proven to be very necessary. I spent a fair amount of time with our engineer and our plant operator and our superintendent of public works, and I feel like, you know, we've looked at alternatives to spending this money, and unfortunately, there are not alternatives, and you know, we need a dependable water treatment plant process, and we need to be able to harness the sophistication that this fancy computer that runs our water plant provides us. So, you know, we all know how stressful and bad of a situation we end up in if we don't have reliable water. We don't want, you know, anything that's similar to, you know, February of 2020. So my motion is we go ahead and
Tim?
Yes.
One question. Can you explain a little bit about what a smart box does?
I you know, there's a memo attached to this. I mean, it's basically telemetry, and you know, it's a way for us to gather information from the computers that run the water treatment plant functionality, and then to make sure that it's you know, communicating. And I think this also includes like a service plan. You know, we're anticipating, you know, we regularly rely on you know, the folks who manufactured this water plant. So this would be, you know, basically an all-you-can-eat service plan, as opposed to you know, paying them for each individual call. So I think that's another part to this, why it makes sense that we go ahead and spend this money. And you know, and I really feel like we have the right team of individuals, you know, our third-party consultants, the engineer, and our plant operator, as well as Blue, and you know, everyone's looked really hard at alternatives, and you know, this is what we would need to do, I think, to get the most out of our treatment plant and make sure that we're providing safe and affordable water.
Okay, thank you. Thanks, Tim.
Yeah, and Alan from Bernier and Larios could probably, you know, spend a weekend explaining lots of things to you if you wanted. You know, it's like the guy is he knows our system really well, and enjoys chatting about it. So if you ever want to go deep, reach out to Alan.
Well, it seems it's all about monitoring. So and being able to monitor remotely.
Yeah. So I motion that I'm sorry, go ahead, Alex.
I'm just saying, this makes total sense to me.
Yeah. It costs a lot of money to provide clean water. And you know, I can't emphasize enough. I really feel like the consultants who we pay a lot of money to are regularly looking carefully about, you know, spending our ratepayer money as prudently as possible. I really feel like, you know, they're very careful. So this, you know, this kind of expenditure is not something that hasn't gone through lots of consideration. So I motion that we go ahead with the proposal.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
I motion that we, oh, do you have a question, Michelle? Or is that just, you're just saying aye? Okay. I motion that we adopt the resolution regarding the dissolved investment account.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
I motion that we move bills and claims.
Second.
Aye.
I,
Do we have a planning board report?
Yes, they met last week. There was one application that was approved, 54 Elting. There's a great deal of discussion about the trees on the property, and the resolution will reflect that no tree shall be removed unless it's diseased or dead, or if necessary for accommodating a utility purpose. And the applicant's been informed about the recreation fee, and that's about it. The only other thing was the mention of 21223, which we know is in review. They seem to be very eager to get that back, for us to get that approved and before the public for adoption.
I can also add that, so with 54 Elting, so that's the property owned by Rich Steffens, and I live on Elting Street. So, I was, contacted by numerous neighbors. But one thing that I did after the approval of, the construction of a house there that Mr. Steffens is interested in building, I try to connect Rich with Tom Olson from our Historic Preservation Commission, and that concept of a design review process, that we've been working on for some time. We've not been able to codify it just yet, because it's, we want to dot I's as carefully as possible. But, in the interim, what we have been doing, and we've done this with numerous other developers, where we encourage them to meet with our HPC and just brainstorm about, how the exterior of buildings could look. So, we're encouraging, and of course, Rich Steffens does not have to do this, but we're just encouraging him, and we would with anyone else, as we've done previously, when there's a structure like this, especially on a street that, the neighbors believe has a particular character, just that, get together with the HPC, maybe there could be some useful feedback. So, that would be really, I think a good outcome. And, I'm optimistic that HPC could make some suggestions that, help the house's character fit with the street's character, and, get the neighbors feeling more comfortable about the project. So I'm optimistic that will happen. And, from what I understand, Mr. Steffens is still working on some design stuff. So once he has something, then he'll try to share that. But again, like he's, currently the way, we don't have anything codified. So, he is under no obligation to do this, but, I'm optimistic that they can sit together and end up with a nicer design. Okay, any I think a lot of the ZBA stuff has been quiet. Is that correct, Michelle?
That is correct. No ZBA update, no meeting.
There's been no meeting.
Correct.
Okay. So the public portion of our meeting, I believe, is all done. I think technically we should keep this meeting open, but shut down the connection to YouTube so it's no longer public. And then just for legal purposes, I'm going to motion that we go into executive session. But then I'll also share, while we're still public, that we don't anticipate taking any action once we come out of exec. So Ariana, could you kill the connection to YouTube? And then this way we can only have village board members on this Zoom call.
All right, I'm going to end the stream now.